Hi, everybody. Welcome to another clip that I got Collin to do real quick. I'm Zion in News. I'm here with Collin. It's Care Bear. Hopefully this will be better quality than the last clip we put up like this.
Apologize about that. Apparently, we now realize from we recorded our Force to Vote clip last night, Friday, right away, without realizing that you need some time to actually record stuff and then post it on YouTube in order for it to be of
YouTube with your nonsense.
in order for it
God.
to be of the highest quality. So hopefully we will give enough time this time for that.
So you wanted to talk about some stuff. This is why we're here.
Well, you brought this story to me yesterday, and I thought it was too good not to not talk about this now, especially given the focus this week has been obviously Force to Vote, and this has kind of gone under the radar, and I think it should be elevated more. But shout out to Sabi. I know she kind of tweeted about this today. I know also Brianna Joy Gray also tweeted about this today.
Did you get Fee's tweet about it?
I did not see Fee's, but
okay. I'll pull that up as well.
Okay, but yeah, so I felt it was important to talk about this now, in light of everything else that was going on. I didn't want to necessarily wait, and Reef, to his credit, is obliging me in this. So, do you want to pull up that tweet first, or do you want to go with?
No, we can go with other stuff.
Okay. So while you find it, actually,
I got it already. I sent it to you. I have it quick.
Okay. We might as well show the tweet now, since
I'll figure out where it best fits, because I think you have this video from Democracy Now! We'll put it after that.
So this is a short clip, but Amy Goodman gives a brief overview of the story regarding. So actually, I'll let her explain it, but basically the Biden administration is being the Biden administration in terms of how they're treating migrants of color who are looking to seek asylum in this country. So she kind of gives a brief overview of what's going on. So you can play the clip.
President Biden announced Thursday the United States will begin blocking migrants from Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba from applying for asylum if they're apprehended crossing the U.S.-Mexico border outside of ports of entry. The asylum seekers will instead be expelled to Mexico without due process as part of an expansion of the contested Trump-era Title 42 pandemic policy. This comes as the Supreme Court set to decide Title 42's fate in its next session. Biden also announced a small number of Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Cubans will qualify for a program granting them temporary permission to live and work in the U.S. if they apply for the relief from their home countries and already have financial sponsors in the U.S. The announcement came just days before Biden's scheduled to visit El Paso, Texas, Sunday to meet with local officials. It'll be Biden's first trip to the U.S.-Mexico border as president. During his remarks Thursday, Biden made no mention of the harsh U.S. sanctions that have contributed to poverty in Nicaragua and Cuba, nor did he acknowledge the catastrophic legacy of U.S. interventions in Haiti.
My message is this: if you're trying to leave Cuba, Nicaragua, or Haiti, or have agreed to begin a journey to America, do not just show up at the border. Stay where you are and apply legally from there.
You stole that lady's script, huh?
If you don't apply through the legal process, you will not be eligible for this new parole program.
In a statement, the American Civil Liberties Union said, quote, Title 42 expulsions were already an unjustifiable misuse of the public health laws. Let's be clear, nothing requires the administration to expand Title 42 while it claims to be preparing for its ending. There is simply no reason why the benefits of a new parole program for Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Haitians must be conditioned on the expansion of dangerous expulsions, the ACLU said.
I mean, pretty much.
Do not come.
Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah,
okay.
Basically.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. So in this segment, Amy talks about Title 42, which is a Trump era legislation. So we're going to get into that in a few minutes, but I do want to give a little bit more of a deep dive as to what the situation is going on in regards to this issue. So,
well, real quick, I'll pull up Fee's thing.
Okay.
What? Because she's reacting to the same video. Why do Republicans insist that Biden has open borders when he's deported more people than Trump? Both parties intervene and coup countries in the global South, using sanctions to sink economies, and then use the immigration issue for votes. Want to stop immigration? Stop intervention. I mean,
and we've talked about this with Haiti a couple months ago now, regarding this, that the U.S. is trying to essentially attempt a coup right now. There's a lot of political mistrust in the country to where now a lot of Haitians are trying to come in, again, seeking asylum. And Biden's basically saying, trying to limit the number. And then even with that, as you heard in the clip, he's saying, if you have the means to come here, meaning if you have money and you have sponsorships, then you can. Which
you're fine.
Kind of goes against, which again kind of speaks to, money, but also the idea that kind of goes against the idea of seeking asylum.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I did want to kind of go into this a little bit more. So this article is from Common Dreams, written by Jake Johnson, where he reports Biden rebuked for doubling down on poisonous anti-immigrant policies of the Trump era. One rights group called the Biden administration's new policy, which expands the Title 42 mass expulsion program, a flagrant violation for all people's rights to seek asylum. So he continues. No, wait.
Go.
No, I did it the right way. It just is stupid.
Yeah.
Google Slides is not cooperate. Usually does not cooperate on my end. But anyway, so he continues. The Biden administration has called the Trump era Title 42 policy obsolete and urged the U.S. Supreme Court to strike it down. But on Thursday, President Joe Biden announced a significant expansion of the migrant expulsion program in an effort to deny entry to Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans who are alive at the U.S.-Mexico border. NBC News reported that under the new policy, which rights groups and experts decry as a cruel attack on asylum seekers, the Biden administration will be sending up to 30,000 migrants from each of the three countries back into Mexico per month, while allowing 30,000 asylum seekers from each of the three countries it means to live and work in the U.S. for 2 years. Those accepted through the application process must show they have a U.S.-based sponsor to support them, much like Venezuelans and Ukrainians have done through programs the Biden administration established in those countries, the outlet explained. We're going to get to more about Ukraine in a second. Well, in a few minutes. The Young Center, an immigrant rights group, called the changes unacceptable and argued that cherry-picking people from Pacific countries undermines the rule of law that guarantees people, regardless of country, race, ethnicity, or language, the right to seek protection through a fundamentally fair proceeding. This proposal, like the current program denying asylum to most Venezuelans, would cap the number of Cuban, Nicaraguan, and Haitian migrants eligible to seek asylum while expelling all others to Mexico, the group added. It is also a flagrant violation of all people's rights to seek asylum by excluding people from protection if they do not have a supporter with financial means in the United States, or if they traveled irregularly through Mexico or Panama to reach the United States. This proposal is discriminatory and dangerous. So actually I actually did have a thought on this, but yeah, actually I remember. So this sounds like when reported on what the UK is doing
Yeah.
of deporting asylum seekers from Europe and the Middle East to Rwanda. So same thing, except with Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Cuban refugees here. So let's continue. Can you zoom in a bit, please?
Yes, I can. Here. Let's do that.
That's good. Thank you. Karen Tumlin, an immigration rights lawyer, agreed, calling Thursday's announcement a new low from the Biden administration with respect to protecting the legal right for those fleeing persecution to seek asylum. Let's be clear, nothing requires the administration to disband Title 42 while it claims to be preparing for its ending. Biden and the Department of Homeland Security unveiled the Title 42 expansion just weeks after the administration asked the Supreme Court to strike down the policy, which uses the coronavirus pandemic as a justification to rapidly expel migrants. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that the Title 42 must remain in place until it hears arguments next month in a case brought by Republican-led states hoping to uphold the program, which the Trump and Biden administrations used to deny millions of people under regular asylum proceedings. In a press release, DHS said in addition to the Title 42 expansion, which the agency acknowledged would soon be struck down, it is increasing and enhancing the use of expedited removal under Title 8 authorities to those who cannot be processed under the Title 42 public health order. Speaking to reporters Thursday, Biden said, "I don't like Title 42, but it is the law now, and I have to operate within it." No, you don't.
You don't. You literally don't have. Oh, you literally don't have to.
No.
So.
No. Especially given that this is a Trump thing.
Yes.
You know? And again, there is some hypocrisy in that. We're going to get to that. But yeah, you literally don't have to. Especially if you want to do away with Trump's quote unquote racist policies that he initiated when he was president.
Which were like extensions of Obama era stuff too, right? Yeah.
Right. So to continue. Title 42 expulsions were already an unjustifiable misuse of the public health laws. This knee-jerk expansion of Title 42 would put more lives in grave danger, said Jonathan Blazer, Director of Border Strategies at the ACLU. Let's be clear, nothing requires the administration to expand Title 42 while it claims to be preparing for its ending. Wait, did I read all of this? No.
Yep.
There is simply no reason why the benefits of a new parole program for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans must be conditioned on the expansion of dangerous expulsions. President Biden correctly recognized today that seeking asylum is a legal right and spoke sympathetically about people fleeing persecution. But the plan he announced further ties his administration to the poisonous anti-immigrant policies of the Trump era instead of restoring fair access to asylum protections, Blazer continued. And previously, President Biden explicitly condemned Trump's asylum ban against people who travel through other countries and made a campaign promise to end it and restore our asylum laws. But today, the White House announced that he plans to bring a weapon version of that ban back. Let's continue.
Yep.
Or you have something to say?
No, yeah. Other than like, like, it's just the fact that like, it's fucking Biden literally is bringing the same thing Trump that he complained Trump did. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't want I want to put logic to this, but
well, you can't. Because,
but yes,
people. I think again, I say this. I think we probably should make this a shirt, honestly. But like, everyone wants to be Malcolm X when a Republican is president.
Yeah.
Because again, if this was under Trump, there was a lot of he and hawing, in terms of like, oh, you need to care about the immigrants and like all this kind of stuff. And now Biden is in office. This again, this went under the radar in terms of, forced to vote this week.
Yeah.
So it's understandable to a point, but I also don't find it reasonable to think that this was done on purpose.
Okay.
This was done this week specifically because no one is necessarily going to be talking about this.
And no one's paying attention.
No one's paying attention.
Okay.
And rightly so. So that's why, thank God for us,
Yeah.
we can report on it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's continue. Amy Fisher, Amnesty International USA's Advocacy Director for the Americas, also expressed outrage over the administration's policy announcement, calling it an attack on the human right to seek asylum. Today, the Biden administration fully reversed course on a statement commitment to human rights and racial justice by once again extending the use of Title 42, announcing rulemaking on an asylum transit ban, expanding the use of expedited removal, and implementing a new system that requires appointments through a mobile app for those desperately seeking safety, said Fisher. Amnesty International previously found that the cruel treatment of Haitians under Title 42 subjected Haitian asylum seekers to arbitrary detention and discriminatory and humiliating mistreatment that amounts to race-based torture. The United States has both a legal and moral obligation to uphold the right to seek asylum, and over the holidays, we once again saw communities mobilize to welcome asylum seekers with dignity. So at least that's a good thing in this regard. Once again, just proving, power of the people who are able to do more than our politicians can in light of stuff like this. The Biden administration must reverse course and stop these policies of exclusion, and instead uphold the right to seek asylum and invest in the communities that are stepping up to welcome, Fisher added.
Okay. Maybe.
Okay. No, that's not it. Wait, did I do this twice? I'm sorry. No. Title 42 expulsions were already an unjustifiable misuse of the public health. No, I did this. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
that's it. Okay. I thought that was it.
God.
Okay. So I want to go into more about, we heard Title 42 quite a bit. So I do want to play this video real quick. I think it's about 5 minutes. If we could play the whole thing, just to kind of give an overview of what Title 42 is, for those of you who need. Actually, this is something I had to learn real quick. Actually, I said it's more 10 minutes, but I think it will give a little more explanation of what Title 42 is and why it's heinous, basically. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Oh.
I started, so.
Today was supposed to be the day that a controversial immigration policy ended, but on Friday, a federal judge in Louisiana blocked the Biden administration from ending Title 42.
It is a public health provision that allows Customs and Border Protection to reject migrants at the border on the basis of trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In early April, the CDC said the policy was no longer needed because of current COVID conditions, vaccines, and treatments.
Now, we've heard about this because...
What?
I'm not sure if that's a clip that I wanted to play.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
About Title 42.
Because of the pandemic, but where did Title 42 come from, and what's been its real impact on the border? Here's this week's KSAT Explains.
It started at the height of the pandemic,
You know,
March
I'm the
of
one that's supposed to be
2020, when the
smoking
Trump
weeds,
administration enacted Title
That's my
42.
shit.
But it's actually been on the books in America for nearly 80 years. It's part of the Public Health Service Act signed by FDR in 1944, toward the end of World War II. The intent of Title 42 was to suspend entries and imports from designated places to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Tuberculosis was a big public health concern then, The Public Health Service Act also created the National Cancer Institute, but overall, not legislation that was considered major.
It really had rarely been used and had never ever been used in the immigration context.
Until 2020, that's when Title 42 was invoked to essentially suspend immigration at U.S. land borders. It meant that Customs and Border Protection did not have to process people who presented themselves at the border wanting to seek asylum. Instead, they're fingerprinted and expelled from the U.S. That's not the same as deportation. When someone is deported, they're barred from re-entering the country for a certain number of years. Expulsion doesn't carry that penalty. What happens after someone is expelled depends on where they're from.
If they're from Mexico or Central America, they're typically just sent right back to Mexico within a matter of hours. If they're from another country where Mexican immigration is not going to allow them to simply be put back, then they're temporarily held in CBP custody. There were people who were being held in hotels until essentially a plane is filled up and then people are flown out.
That's what we saw play out in Del Rio in September 2021. Nearly 16,000 migrants from Haiti crossed into the U.S. hoping to seek asylum, fleeing a country in upheaval after the assassination of the Haitian president and a devastating earthquake. It became a humanitarian crisis in Del Rio. Thousands of people living in makeshift shelters under a bridge with few supplies and resources. It's exactly what the mayor of Laredo is concerned about with the ending of Title 42.
Currently, as we speak, there's over 3,000 Haitians in Nuevo Laredo, our sister city. And obviously, that's going to take a long time, and I don't know whether these folks will get frustrated like they did in Del Rio and would want to come all at once.
Mayor Pete Sine says Customs and Border Protection needs more resources to handle an increase in migrants. CBP plans to add 600 agents to the border as Title 42 ends. Homeland Security will also increase the capacity of federal holding centers from 12,000 to 18,000 and vaccinate those in federal custody. But a big question surrounding.
So basically, this is how they're going to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
More cops and more shelters, basically. Cages. That's basically how, so a lot more reform shit versus actually trying to figure out, like, why would people from these countries would want to come here? They're not going to talk about that stuff. They're not going to talk about how we're trying to infiltrate those countries. We can't talk about that, but we can add more police or security, whatever you want to call it. We can build more cages in order to put the immigrants in, or we can just send them away and just be like, deuces, you're not welcome.
Yeah.
But we can do that. So yeah, it's just, again, more of the same stuff that, again, if this was Trump or any Republican, and we talked about, Governor Abbott, basically recently dropping off migrants. Where was it? What city? I know DC was one, but I think it was DC.
I think
it was DC.
I forget the other one. There was another one, but
Right.
DC.
And, DC has definitely been one. They also was sent up to Martha's Vineyard, and
that was the other one.
That was the other one. And more recently over Christmas, there was another drop.
Right.
I think it was in DC in front of Kamala Harris's, home or whatever. So we can kind of call out Abbott easily, and there was a lot of press about him. But again, this barely got any press at all. You know? So because it's a Democrat, in office. So it just kind of shows, and we're going to get more into this later, just how piss poor our migration services are in this country, and we're not really necessarily doing anything to really rehabilitate that, but especially, we're not doing anything to kind of figure out, how our presence in these countries are affecting people who feel that they don't have any other choice but to want to come here.
Got it.
So let's continue.
Preparations for the end of Title 42. Will it all be enough? In March of this year, the Border Patrol facility in Eagle Pass was at capacity, so CBP announced it would begin releasing migrants into Dimmitt County who'd been processed and cleared through background checks.
Could be 10, could be 50, could be 150.
Title 42 was still in effect then, allowing migrants to automatically be turned away at the border. So why was an immigrant detention facility so full? In part, Erica Schomer says, because the use of Title 42 has been inconsistent.
Some of them are detained, some of them are released. And so that is also a concern because it appears to be very arbitrary who is rejected and who is allowed to make a claim.
To make an asylum claim, you must be physically present in the U.S. You can't start the process online or even at a U.S. embassy. Once a migrant claims asylum, the next step is what's called a credible fear interview. That's when an asylum officer decides whether a person merits going through the full asylum process. Fear.
So remember what Biden said?
Mhm.
You know, you had to apply from your country,
Yeah.
which you cannot do,
Yeah.
you know, and you also have to apply through what he said, an app, which again, you cannot do. So, you know, so basically it's his way of saying you can't come here,
Yeah.
you know, as the only way you're able to come here is if you have a sponsor who is willing to has the money to be able to work on your behalf, which most people who are coming in, especially if you're seeking asylum, that's not a guarantee for most, I would
Right.
imagine. So
Yeah.
keep going. Keep going.
Is something
These
Jamie
are-
Solis is fleeing. Arelicia Barrera met Jamie and her 3-year-old daughter at the Catholic Charities Respite Center in McAllen. They came to the U.S. from Nicaragua to escape political oppression and violence.
Y ahí es terrible, ahí está bien reprimido, no puedes decir nada porque ya te echan la policía. No puedes expresarte bien, tenés que andar siempre con ese miedo.
She was one of the lucky ones who wasn't turned away. And then there's Yamari Gonzalez Vasquez from Cuba. What he fears, he says, is hunger in his home country.
Si estamos pidiendo asilo para tener un mejor futuro, para un futuro para el bebé, para nosotros mismos también, que tenga todo lo que un cubano no puede tener.
That is all that we've been advocating for, right? Allow people to apply for asylum. It doesn't mean they get to stay. It just means give them a chance to apply, and if they qualify, they get to stay. If they don't qualify, they may be deported. And Title 42 gets rid of all of that.
But there are those who enter the U.S. illegally who don't seek asylum, whether frustrated with too slow a process at the southern border or simply hoping to evade immigration authorities.
I do find people that are lost, okay?
Richard Guetta owns La Anacua Ranch in Starr County, outside Roma, several thousand acres just north of the border. He's seen firsthand what migrants often go through trying to make the dangerous journey into the U.S.
They have been abandoned. Whoever brought them across abandoned them. And they told them, well, it's just a short distance and you're going to be in Houston, right? But of course, that's not true. It's so hard to see people enduring things like that, you know.
His fences have been damaged by migrants who cross his lands. Even his livelihood, his cattle, have been affected. But a concern that spreads beyond his ranch, he says, is drug smuggling.
You know, there's a lot of narcotics coming across. The National Guard is out there to supplement the Border Patrol. And even so, they can't control it. So it's out of hand. By removing Title 42, you're going to add to an existing burden.
Yet some argue the anticipated wave of migrants is a problem that U.S. policy created.
Because of Title 42, that's the reason why we have the levels and activities that we see right now.
The numbers are arguably higher right now precisely because we've been pushing people back for more than 2 years.
Let's look at the numbers from Customs and Border Protection for fiscal year 2022 so far. That's October 1st, 2021 to May 17th of this year. CBP has rejected people 1.2 million times at the southern border. More than half of those rejections were Title 42 expulsions. But these stats reflect the number of times a person has tried to cross the border, not the number of people, because the same person can try more than once.
Right.
It can be confusing and complicated, much like the American immigration system itself. Despite calls again and again for reform, substantial change continues to be a struggle. For now, we'll see what a change in Title 42 brings to Texas.
I think that it is going to be very chaotic depending on what decisions are issued by which courts regarding what policies.
Okay. Great. It's fucked up because it's fucked up because it's fucked up. Got it.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to this. A little bit more that I do want to share in a few minutes. But so let's transition a little bit. So now we know what Title 42 is. It's just basically a quicker way just to say nope, you don't need go away. Let's see how this relates to something else that Brianna Joy Gray kind of mentioned earlier today that I thought about, but I think it's very valid to kind of talk about, where she tweeted, "This is entirely consistent with Joe Biden's entire political history with respect to race." So if you zoom in, so we know on the right, obviously, expanding Title 42, but on the left, it says Ukrainians are offered while others wait.
It gets worse.
So, and I have an article from mainstream media that talks about this a little bit. But I think this is, very balanced. One of the rare times I think it is. So this was written actually last spring by, if you zoom in a bit, because I can't see that. I need to wear my glasses. But Jacqueline Almany and Fyodorek Meyer. So this opinion piece was written called, if you zoom out, Biden's pledge to help Ukrainian refugees could soon be put to the test. So we can say Ukrainian evacuees sit on a bus no, I won't read that. President Biden pledged earlier this month to welcome Ukrainian refugees with open arms if, in fact, they come all the way here. And Vice President Harris said the United States is absolutely prepared to do what we can and must do to support Poland, where millions of Ukrainians have fled in recent weeks to escape the Russian invasion. Totally different response for Ukrainians versus people from the global south.
Yeah.
However, those two words may be soon put to the test. Biden's expected to face pressure to do more to help with Europe's fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II when he meets with Polish Prime Minister Andrzej Duda this week in Warsaw, where officials say the city is straining to meet the needs of Ukrainians. Pressure is also rising in Washington as the crisis worsens and several senators return from visits to the region. If the Germans are taking these folks in, we ought to take them in. If the British are taking them, we ought to be taking them in, particularly if they have connections here, said Senator Angus King, who returned Sunday from a trip to Poland and Germany. My understanding is that they're being expedited, that they're getting a special status to come in as refugees. But again, that's another piece that we have to be sure we attend to. Very different response here.
Yeah.
So the Biden administration has maintained that the majority of refugees want to relocate to neighboring countries, and very few have so far come to the United States. But even if the numbers remain low, any appearance that Ukrainians are having trouble coming to the United States could be politically problematic for the administration. So could any feeling towards European allies that Biden isn't doing enough to help them shoulder the influx of Ukrainians? To help with the crisis, the United States has provided more than $293 million in humanitarian assistance, including about $48 million to Poland that helps with the provision of food, safe drinking water, shelter, winterization services, livelihoods assistance, emergency healthcare, and other protection activities to those affected by Russia's further invasion of Ukraine, according to the U.S. State Department.
293 million.
Yeah, but where's this money for Haiti?
Uh-huh.
Where's this money for the Global South?
Good question.
Yeah. So it just shows that we're the problem. There's again, our immigration system is shit, so, and the administration knows that. So to appease that, they're giving aid, which I think is great. And I think this goes back to what Breonna Joy Gray, with that fallout she had. I forgot the name of that man again, but where she insinuated that she doesn't care about Ukrainian children or whatever else, that she basically got, smeared on Twitter for. This is exactly what I think she was mentioning or kind of implying to, because it's a matter of consistency. There should be concern about, refugees in Ukraine, but that should be that same concern about people everywhere else. And as you can see, at least with Biden, at least in rhetoric, there is this idea of we should be accepting of them. We should welcome them in. But then, for everyone else, he is very antagonistic and basically saying, don't come here.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Which I think is very hypocritical of what he should be doing.
Oh. You got some more?
Anyway. Yeah, I got some more. The Biden administration has also announced temporary protected status for Ukrainians already in the United States by March 1st that will allow them to stay here legally and work for at least the next 18 months. One issue that is already flaring up, though, is how to handle Ukrainian families who have mixed immigration status. ABC News reported last week that for Ukrainians who don't have an immediate family member who is a U.S. citizen, the process of applying for a visa could take months, even years. That pool of people is also already limited. Immigrant visas only apply to immediate family members as defined by under U.S. law, spouses, unmarried children under 21, and parents. Finnegan notes. That means for someone like Liza, a Ukrainian American who is seeking to host her sister at her home in Massachusetts while the war is ongoing, the process could drag out. After a 7-day trip to Poland from Kharkiv with her 6-month-old, my sister has had to apply for and is still waiting for a U.S. visa for her baby, said Liza, who asked the early to withhold her last name to protect her family that remains in Ukraine. Like many others, she left behind everything because she was forced to, and not because she wanted to save her child's life. We just want them to be safe and surrounded by family, but the process of getting here is proving very difficult. The State Department told the early that it is working to ensure our embassies and consulates in the region have sufficient staff and resources and are prioritizing consular support to U.S. citizens and their immediate family members. With U.S. consulates in Ukraine closed, the State Department has directed all Ukrainian visa applications to U.S. Consulate General in Frankfurt, Germany. The current legal hurdles preventing Ukrainian seeking to come to the United States underscore longstanding issues in the country's refugee system, according to advocates. To say the U.S. immigration processing is backlogged is maybe an understatement, and to say that the visa system is difficult to navigate is probably an understatement. Sanil Farjas, the policy director at International Refugee Assistance Project, told the early. I think what this kind of forced displacement situation has shown us is the need to have a robust refugee processing system in place but also having humanitarian protection as a kind of underpinning of U.S. policy and global policy. So, so I think I actually very rare, not rare, but I think to credit for Washington Post giving a balanced view that even Ukrainian families or refugees are having issues. But again, it's just more tied to how fucked up our system is and how backlogged our system is. That also kind of relates to, migrants from the global south who are also kind of. So all this to say, our immigration system is fucked up.
Yes. Yep.
For everyone involved. But to go on a little bit more, so I think you remember, I remember this, because in the midst of all of this, I do want to remind folks that last year, when the war in Ukraine started, that this was an article, and I'm not going to read it, but
links are probably in description, right?
I could put it there if people want. I could put it there if people want to read it. But I remember reading this or stories like this and being like, "Huh." Like, especially in light of the student loan debt issue, especially since we've been talking about, affordability of college, in independent media. This was stories that I think will kind of not brush aside. So go back. But Black America responds to HBCU Hampton University funding up to 100 students from Ukraine with free housing and tuition.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of stories like this, and I think if you so I remember the Black Authority, who is a part of New Black Media. So again, as I said, Ukraine is getting humanitarian aid, and then other countries associated who are receiving refugees from Ukraine. So he tweeted, if you go back up, well, the HBCUs are at it again. Do you think this has anything to do with the alleged federal dollars they have allegedly received?
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact that, Zelensky has been getting all this money from us, and now Ukrainian students are able to come to historically Black colleges and essentially getting free tuition and free room and board to attend those colleges, whereas Black students who are looking for the same opportunities are not necessarily given that guarantee.
Right.
And one more slide from this, where Nakelo Niagoja writes in response, well, there are plenty of African students in Ukraine who were displaced and couldn't continue their education. Are they number one on the list? So remember, like at the beginning, there were African students who were in Ukraine who were trying to leave, and they were not given priority to leave over, native-born Ukrainians who were.
Which is fucked up. Anyway.
Right. So, so I think, so again, we kind of wanted to report on this because this was kind of brushed aside or not talked about, but but this kind of leads into the issue I think many of us have with Ukraine. But I think this is a larger discussion, I think, in terms of immigration and people who are trying to come into the West, not just here, but are being turned away. But Ukrainian refugees or seeking asylum, not to say it's perfect, but they're given more of a shot to come here. So I think just kind of speaking to the hypocrisy, in terms of that, but I think it also just speaks to how crappy your immigration system is. And again, like the squad, where are your voices in this? Again, this was under Trump. AOC was crying, over the children in cages. Where's the response from this now? You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are plenty of people who are turning away, and now Biden is basically upholding, if not even increasing, Title 42, which Trump kind of elevated, and he's not doing anything about that, even though, as you said, he could.
Yes.
But I think it's just pushing a problem aside. And again, shout out to people who are advocating for these migrants and helping them and welcoming them into this country. But this whole thing is just kind of a mess.
Yep.
But in terms of larger issues that I don't think are necessarily addressed. And I think in independent media, especially, I think we do a good job. I think these need to be elevated more in terms of identifying the core issues.
Yep.
As to why immigrants are coming here or wanting to come to the West in the first place.
No, I agree. There's a ton of crap involved with that story too. So, like, essentially, it's as always, like we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Like, basically.
Okay.
But not us. Well, not us, but migrants in this case.
Us too, because they're just doing that to everybody. But anyway, you can find me and Collin. Our handles are right underneath the both of us. Links to all the members of INN and INN itself is at that indienews.network. You see scrolling across the screen. Everything's in the description below too. So, please sub. We're almost there. We appreciate all the support.
And, we'll have more clips coming out throughout the week. And we'll, actually was speaking to you in the past because we're going to upload this as soon as we're done here and put this up right away. And then, check us out on Wednesday for full live stream.
Yep. Hopefully Haifong will be there. Stay tuned. Hopefully. We'll see.
Or at least at some point. So
yes,
we're working on that.
So, but anyway, as always, labels are bad, kids. Stay independent. Good night.